In today's episode, we're going to walk you through the only 3 reasons why you're not making sales. So stick around. If you want to build a legitimate, profitable online business without shiny objects, without the hypey gimmicks, and without the stress and overwhelm, if you want to make more money without having to be present online all day, every day, pumping out content that nobody sees and hustling DMs to generate leads and sales, then this is the place for you. Welcome to the Digital Trailblazer podcast, your online business university, where you'll learn how ordinary people start from ground zero with no influence, no email list or audience to sell to, and no business or marketing experience, and go from working 9-to-5 jobs to building successful 6- and 7-figure online businesses and all the steps in between. Learn the strategies that worked and what didn't. Learn the mistakes that they made and how to avoid them, and then learn their plans for scaling their businesses and taking things to the next level. All so that you can build your business faster and easier and make more money without sacrificing the things that are important to you in your life. I'm your host, Leah Ray Getz, and with me is my husband, Todd. Now, let's get to it with today's guest. Hey, Digital Trailblazers. We're having a really frank conversation today, breaking down really the only true reasons why you're unable to make sales. We know things can be hard out there. We know that a lot more people want to be successful coaches, want to have courses and info products out there in the marketplace selling regularly and consistently, but the vast majority are struggling. So let's break down these 3 reasons and help you to fix it. Now, the first thing that we need to really look at when it comes to why you're not selling is we need to take a cold, hard look at the messaging, the positioning around your offer itself. Yes, the offer has to be great, but even more so, if you will, or just on top of that, you absolutely need very powerful message that helps to convey the value of your offer and show people, convince people that, hey, that value is high enough that I'm actually willing to pay for it, because nothing else is going to fix that. If that's off, none of the fancy stuff, nothing else is going to magically get this to sell. We need to first look at the positioning and the messaging around the offer, because that is by far going to have the most impact.
And the analogy that we often use is that you need to approach this like a doctor consults a patient. When a patient comes into a doctor's office, and let's say they have knee pain, they've got a problem that they want solved. And they go to the doctor and they say, okay, doc, I got knee pain. I'm not sure what's wrong, but it's been going on for so long and blah, 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 right? If all the doctor says is, okay, well, for knee pain, I'm the best knee replacement surgeon in the entire area, and I can do a knee replacement for you, and I'm sure that will fix it. If that's all the doctor says, and those things may be true. The doctor may be the very best knee surgeon in the country or wherever, but at that point, the patient isn't yet convinced that a knee replacement is even what they need or what they want, or they're not even quite sure why they're probably even having the problem that they're having. So even though that may be a great option for a lot of people, that patient is probably not going to go through with surgery. So what a good doctor will do is that when somebody comes in with symptoms, they're going to diagnose the problem. They're going to do some scans, they're going to run some tests, and they're going to find exactly the reason why they're having the problem. And they're going to give the patient a diagnosis. The next thing that a doctor will do is they will talk about alternative options. What are the other ways that you could deal with this problem that may or may not be helpful, but these are the other options, right? These are the alternative treatments. So someone comes in with knee pain, we do scans, we do some tests, we find out they're missing almost all the cartilage in their knee. So some things that we could do for that, number one, we could put you on an anti-inflammatory diet. That'll bring down inflammation, bring down some of the pain. It's something that may help, but probably isn't going to totally fix the situation. We could do over-the-counter pain medications, ibuprofen, things like that, other things that'll bring down the inflammation. Again, that's kind of a Band-Aid fix. It'll help some of the pain, but you don't want to be on those medications long-term for the rest of your life. Another thing we could do is cortisone injections, which again, it's going to help. It's a little bit more invasive. You got to come into the doctor's office so often, but again, it's to the point where this is just a temporary fix and it's not really going to fix the underlying issue. And so that's why the best solution for you is going to be a total knee replacement. Now, once you explain that to the patient and they know what their other options are, they know why they're probably not going to be the most ideal solution for them, and then you present the ideal solution that you want them to go through with, then they're going to be much more likely to move forward with whatever it is that you're offering. But they'll probably still have some questions like, okay, well, how much does this cost? Is my insurance going to cover it? What's the recovery time? What's the failure rate? What's the risk of making this worse rather than better? Blah, 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 right? There's these other questions or objections that they need answered before they're willing to go through with the procedure. It's going to be the same thing whenever we're talking about you and your messaging and your prospects. When somebody comes in with problems that you can help them to solve, like for example, with us, we help people to build profitable online businesses. And people come in, they can't generate leads, they don't have traffic, right? They've got all these symptoms and they want to know what the problem is. So what we need to do is kind of look at what they've got going on and say, okay, this is the one thing that's wrong, right? This is your diagnosis. Once they understand that, then we need to explain what are some of the other options that they've got. Like you could learn how to do webinars, you could learn how to do copywriting, you could do, learn how to do lead generation, you could learn how to do paid ads, right? These are some of the other things that you can do that people pay money for online courses that, are definitely going to be helpful, but they're probably not going to fix the underlying issue of what's going on in your business. That's why what we recommend is blank, right? And there's our offer. And so very much in the same way that a doctor would consult the patient, that's the way that you need to treat your prospective customers and clients, is you need to explain to them why they're having the symptoms that they're having, why are they experiencing these issues, give them a diagnosis. This is the one thing that if we fix it, it's going to make your life this much better and it's going to help you to achieve your goal. And then we need to explain what the other options are. What are the other things that they may have heard of, that they may be considering, and why are those things, they may be helpful, but they're not going to get them all the way to their goal. Once we explain that, then we present them with our solution that does fix the problem. That's when you start making sales.
That's number one. The second element that we need to look at, and we can boil all the problems down, right, to these three core elements. The second one is your systems to sell. I can't tell you how many people, when I ask them, about their business, they say they're struggling, and then I kind of dive in and start asking more detailed, really specific questions about what they're currently doing to try to make sales. They're lucky if they have like a lead magnet and then a link to their calendar. Like that's the vast majority of coaches and people out there trying to sell coaching or courses. That's all they have when it comes to trying to sell. So maybe a lead magnet if you're lucky. Otherwise, it's just a calendar link to get on a call. So they're out there posting on social. They're doing all of this work. They're going on podcasts. They're doing these things. And there's not an actual process to generate the lead and then nurture and qualify and continually move that lead closer and closer to a purchasing decision. That's what your sales system needs to do. So if you've got a lead magnet, that's a good first step. That's like the first step. You need a lot of other additional pieces built out to continually get them to walking closer and closer to you and getting them to make a purchasing decision. Because it's that whole, you've heard it from us probably several times now, it's that whole analogy of a dating analogy, right? You don't meet someone, bump into someone at a coffee shop and ask them to marry you right away. That's essentially what you're doing when you're just either book a call, right? So instead, you're going through a process of dating, right? Getting multiple touches, because there's many, many touches that are needed for someone to build the know, like, and trust factor to be able to pull the trigger on making a purchase. So the old school of thought, I think, was 7 to 12. There's some more studies coming out, maybe up to like 40 some touches that people need to make these kind of decisions. And if you're only doing all of that manually or relying on your social media content to do that for you, you are missing out on tons of people, because there's no possible way you can keep on top of that day in and day out and keep your pipeline and your process full to have consistent revenue, consistent clients coming through the door.
And the other thing that you need to understand, especially if you're someone that has gotten most of your clients through networking and referrals. Networking and referrals, it's a great way to get started. But the thing that you have to understand when you're getting your clients that way is that it's not your marketing that's getting the client. It's your relationships that you're building. And you can only scale relationships so far, and you can only scale them so fast. And so that's probably why you found that your business has plateaued, like you're hustling and hustling and hustling, and you can't seem to get over that hump of maybe $10,000 or $20,000 a month, if that even. And that's the issue with people who rely on strictly on networking and referrals, is that they don't have those systems, because everybody that's come through has just kind of come through a warm method, and you haven't had to put together a funnel. You haven't had to put together a landing page and a lead magnet and an email marketing system and all these other things, because everybody that's come in has been a warm lead, and the relationship is what has gotten that client for you. When you want to start scaling your business and you want to start reaching out to a cold market and being able to sell to that cold market, you really need good marketing and good systems to be able to automate all those people that are coming through, and automate that process of introducing them to you and what you do and how you help people and the solution that you offer. And, all these things that we were talking about with your messaging, we want to automate that information going out to your audience. And we don't want to just dump it on them all at once. We need to kind of feed it to them in the right order at the right time. And so that's what a good system is going to do. You're going to have a top of funnel system. You're going to have a nurture system kind of in the middle. That's your middle funnel. You're going to have a sales system on your bottom funnel. And then you're going to have a traffic source. Those are the four main things that you need in your business in order to really automate and start generating paying clients with cold traffic.
Absolutely. And I think it's a common just misconception. I've got a lead magnet, I email my list, or I've got a nurture campaign, and they're just waiting for the sales calls to come through. And all they have is an email sequence that tells them to book a call.
Yeah. And that's kind of like the equivalent of putting a dating profile out there on one of these dating apps and expecting marriage proposals to come in, right? Like it doesn't work that way. You can automate that part of meeting people and kind of making the first connection, but there's still that whole nurture process and everything else that needs to happen in order to get to the point where you're ready to marry somebody. You can't just put up this front end system and expect, marriage proposals to come in. It doesn't work that way. And it's the same thing with business. You can't just put content out there and provide, quote, provide value and expect people to just contact you wanting to buy and join. It doesn't work that way.
Yeah, one of my favorite questions to these folks about, how are you selling to them? And they're like, well, they get on a sales call, and then I everybody I talk to, or almost everybody, they join. Well, that's because they were, warm market, or their relationship pre-sold that. So when I ask them that again, if you're generating a lead from social media, from a podcast guest, how are you selling to them? Well, they have the option to book a call. Like, no, how do they even decide to click that button to book the call? That's one really important thing that you need to look at. Do you have a VSL, a video sales letter, or a webinar, or something that's actually selling to them, showing them the value that you have that you are offering to them, and getting them to say, hey, this looks good enough that it's worth actually me talking to this person. Because the vast majority of people are just going to be curious about what you do, and they're just going to poke around, and then they're going to get bored, and they're going to focus on somebody else. But when you have their attention, if you can actually sell to them, meaning showing them the value you have to offer and how it can transform their lives, their businesses, their relationships, whatever that is, that's what gets them to click that button to book the call, to get on the sales call and be actually interested in hiring you or purchasing your course.
And what a lot of people don't understand is that ask of booking a call. A lot of people feel like, oh, that's super valuable. This is an actual consultation. They're going to get all this value out of it and blah, blah, blah. That's actually a very high resistance ask. People are going to be very resistant to being able to take that first step, no matter how much value you're putting into that call. Because the instinct that most people have, well, number one, people don't like personal interactions. People don't like jumping on the phone. And that's why people do text messaging. That's why they, everything goes to voicemail. Pickup rates for phone calls now are pretty low. People are just not used to interacting with another human being. That's a very high resistance activity for people. So using that as, one of the early steps in your system is just not going to work. So, there's a lot of other steps that need to take place before we even get to the point where we invite somebody to book a call. And getting those things in place and knowing what order to put them in, that's a whole nother discussion. But what you have to understand is that this is definitely a multi-step process. This isn't something where you just create content, you have an invite to book a call, and then people just book a call. It doesn't work that way.
Now, once you have your messaging really dialed in, when people understand the value, they're willing to pay for it. Once you have your systems beautifully designed and highly optimized, so they're continually taking that step forward. There's no dead ends, and you're actually selling them on what you have to offer to get them to move into that sales call or make that purchase. The third element here, ladies and gentlemen, is traffic. Because if nobody sees this, it's not going to matter. They have to see this. You can build out a beautiful offer with an amazing message. You can build out a beautiful funnel and process to move people through to a sale, but you have to keep feeding that funnel. You have to continually get this exposed and get new leads generated to get them into this process so that you can consistently and reliably be putting sales out on the back end.
Right. And what a lot of people don't understand about traffic is that it's definitely a numbers game. You need to put up big numbers in order to generate even just one customer or one client. I can't tell you how many times we've had people come in and, they'll want us to take a look at their webinar or look at their sales funnel or whatever it is. And we'll look at things and things definitely need to be improved. But when I ask them, okay, how many people have been through this? How many leads have we generated? How many people have seen this presentation? And they say something like, well, it's only been like 12 people. It's like, okay, well, we need to put at least 100 people through this. and preferably we put 100 people through that in at least a week or less, right? We want to generate some velocity with this as well. And the reason is because, like I said, we're looking at very small numbers. If you are selling a $300 product on a webinar that you're doing, say, once a week, you can expect to convert maybe roughly 3 to 6% of all registrants. So if you generate 100 registrants for your webinar, at the end of the day, with your webinar, with a follow-up, with a replay that goes out, with a fully developed system, you can expect to generate, out of 100 registrants, maybe 3 to 6 sales. So when somebody comes to me and they say, yeah, I did a webinar, I had 12 registrants and nobody bought. What's wrong with it? Well, I can't tell you what's wrong with it. You got to put more people through it, and then we can look at the numbers. And especially with high ticket systems, like if you've got a high ticket funnel that you're doing and you've put 100 leads through it, then even then it's like, let's get at least 200 or 300 leads through this and see what the numbers are. But we know that at the end of the day, if we get 100 leads with your follow-up systems, with everything in place and everything's running smoothly, we can expect to book maybe 5 to 8 qualified sales calls. We can often outperform that, but that's kind of the minimum number that we look for is 5 to 8 qualified sales calls. Out of those 5 to 8 sales calls, we expect at least 4 to 6 to show up live. There's always cancellation or reschedule or something in there that there's just some people that fall off. So out of those 4 to 6 that show up live, we expect that we have at least a 25% close rate on a high ticket offer, something that's $2,000 or $3,000 or more. So at that point, we're looking at 1 to 2 paying clients out of every 100 leads that you generate. Those are the types of numbers that we want to be able to put up. But the thing is that you may generate your first 100 leads and you get 0 sales. And then you generate another 100 leads and you get 0 sales. And then you generate another 100 leads and suddenly, 4 or 5 sales come through. So it's not just a matter of, generating 100 leads and, like clockwork, you expect that to come in. It's over time. Those are the numbers that we kind of expect. And so it's a numbers game. You need to be good. Once you have your system in place, you need to be very good at generating that traffic so we can test things, we can get numbers back, we can see where we need to improve based on what those numbers are. Because we look at everything like click rates, opt-in rates. At every step of that funnel, we're looking at who's clicking, who's not, why are they clicking, what is the opt-in rate, what is the click rate? And then that's where we know what we need to improve upon. And so this is all just a very scientific process that once we have it all put together, that we can look at and see exactly what we need to improve upon in order to reach profitability in your business. But in order to get there, we need the traffic. If you don't have the traffic, it's like trying to squeeze water out of a rock. And I can't tell you how many times people are like, okay, I generated 5 leads. None of them bought, but I'm going to follow up with them. And it's like they keep pestering these 5 leads that they generated over the last month in order to get them to buy and join, where really what you need to do is just get good at generating traffic and get another 5 people in there, and then another 5, and then another 5. That's what we need to get good at. not trying to hound the few leads that you have to try to pester them until they buy and join.
So if you know that you could use some work in one of these 3 categories, then we do have a special training for you today. We will have it in the show notes and description. This is a video training that we put together that really walks you through how we do it, how we've put this together and created massive success, not just for us, for our clients. And you will learn so much through that process. So make sure you grab that today. And we'll see you in the next episode. Have a blessed day. You've been listening to the Digital Trailblazer podcast. For show notes and information about today's guest, head to digitaltrailblazer.com. Now, if you love this episode, if you got some value, make sure you leave us a review and subscribe. And be sure to share this episode with anyone you know who could use help to build their business. Thank you for listening, and we'll see you next time.